Welcome back to another Zwift Racing League Recon. This time we're in London for the greatest London flat. It's one lap, just over 31 kilometres, and in this Recon, we've got a special guest who's going to give us the tips and insights to make your team faster on a team time trial. Let's dive in to this week's Recon. So let's get into this Recon, and it is a Recon with a difference because we've got a special guest this time. We've got none other than James Barnes, who's going to give us his top 5 tips for the team time trial, and that team is certainly at the top, that being Next, powered by Insured. But first of all, let's take a look at this course. It is the greatest London flat, 31.1 kilometers. This one, just over 200 meters of elevation. Basically, we've got a long lead in here. It's about 7 kilometers all the way along the Thames up towards the Mall. Then we've got a loop around Greater London before we cross the river and head into the Surrey Hills. That's where we get this draggy section on the Richmond Hill. We're basically then going to come back over the river and finish off on the same section of road that we started on towards that finish line. But let's not delay. Let's get into these top 5 tips that are going to help us get a faster team time trial. All right, I told you we're going to do something a little bit different for this week for the Recon, and I'm pleased to welcome James Barnes from Next, powered by Insured. James, how are you?
Oh, very well yourself. Happy Tuesday, Wednesday.
It is Wednesday, yeah. So we're doing this the week before the TTT, and I'm a bit confused, James, because if I look at you, you've got your sunglasses on, but it looks like there's a window to your right side there, and that looks dark outside. So what's going on?
No, we're not talking about time traveling here, mate. We're in the realm of time traveling, and I'm not telling you what the time is yet.
But yeah, thank you for joining the show. I think first of all, thank you for coming on. And you guys are doing a great job as always. And I know we're going to see you in the Zwift Grand Prix. I know we haven't seen many announcements from Zwift yet, but I'm really looking forward to you guys smash it up in the Zwift Grand Prix. Of course, you are going to be doing a team time trial this time around in the Grand Prix as well. So it's kind of going back to the old days of when it was the Premier League there, James.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. You know, I'm definitely looking forward to the old school coming back, and you know, the mix of the new with the new styles and the new events and too, which is going to bring in a lot of extra spice, I think, to it. I think some of the events some of us are terrified for. I'm definitely terrified for the second event. You know, and I'm hoping I'm going to get my lawn chair out and just watch everybody else while everybody else is suffering. But yeah, I'm so glad that the team time trial back, because that's one of my favorite events.
Yeah, well, you've got plenty of quality in your team there that you can rotate a little bit as well. But I know I have got a specific video coming out on the Zwift Grand Prix pretty soon, so keep your eyes open for that. But today, James, I want to talk about team time trial. It's not my strength, so I needed to get an expert, and you're one of those experts. So yeah, let's talk about team time trial. So first of all, James, I want your top 5 tips for team time trialing. How are teams who watch these Recons week on week going to make their team faster?
The biggest thing for me, I think, and it's something that everybody can learn, and not just apply just to team time trials, is the draft. Trusting the draft. The draft is a lot stronger than you think, and the draft is a lot bigger than you think. It's not just the 5, per se the 5 meters, and it's also how you interact with it. So, don't surge if you're suddenly losing the wheel. Rather ramp up the effort slowly, and trust the draft is always going to be there. Don't fight for the wheel. Second tip, keep it in a long straight line. The longer and straighter the line, the more efficient everybody's riding. If somebody's on the front, say doing 6 watts a kilo, the person in third wheel could be doing below 4, which is a huge amount of effort to be saved, to be used later. And then again, that also comes to trusting the draft and trusting, the other riders that you're doing it with. Third one, using the gradients to your advantage. When you're seeing the little kickers ahead, ramp up the effort just before, so accelerating into it and up and over the top of F gradients to then accelerate into the negative gradients so you get up to speed faster. It's all about understanding the course and the course knowledge there. Yeah, driving it hard towards the end, trusting the draft. Obviously knowing the course is huge. If you can get a director sportif, that's also massive. And then obviously the right equipment. The team time trial is such a lovely thing, because it's basically it's like art. It's a very finely orchestrated orchestra. The more you guys more as you as a team can ride together, the better it is.
Yeah, I'd say I'm always, me and my team are always a little bit too heavy-handed, and exactly what you said there about trusting that draft. It is amazing, even with the new dynamics that we've seen of how little you can do sat in a wheel or wheels. And I guess that's going to work well with the TTT. Having said that, James, I know we've seen some changes, and even this week we've seen some changes in the pack dynamics. So there is a little bit of unknown there, I guess, because I don't know what you saw, but I noticed that the pack dynamics this time, or in Yorkshire, should I say, the riders were a little bit more spread across the road. It was a little bit easier. You hadn't got to do that punch as such to move up the pack. You could feather it a bit more, right?
Yeah, definitely. As a bigger rider, I didn't find a big problem with the previous, pack dynamics because I'm more raw power versus the watts per kilo. So then this new one, I found it was a lot easier for me to move forward, and I was enjoying my cup of Yorkshire tea at the front of the bunch, way too easily.
So I just want to come back to a point that you've said there about how you deal with these gradients, and obviously, how do you get that control there of punching into a climb, but then what you said, I think, was you've got to accelerate over the top as well.
Prime example in terms of this course is when you're going coming from the Box Hill, the Richmond Park area, you're going up the staircase elevators, and it's a 10% gradient. If you basically 2-3 seconds before you hit the big gradient, you accelerate, everybody just steps up the effort slightly, and you'll see the speed will rise ever so slightly. But what that means is your avatars will carry the momentum into the gradient and catapult you up 25 to maybe even luckily 50% of the elevators for not much extra effort, which you can then carry that effort up and over the top. And then again, no, don't just stop the effort once it goes flat. Keep going and try to get back up to speed as fast as possible, because that's where you can gain a few extra sneaky seconds on your competitors or the other teams that you're racing against.
All right, one more question from my side then, because I don't know if this happens in your team, but it certainly happens in my team, and more so lately that it's me that it happens to, is at what point do you make the decision if you drop a rider, or at what point do you decide if a rider's too far off the bat that you just got to go, or you wait? Is there a particular point in the course, or is it everything's different, you've just got to make a decision on the fly?
I think it's obviously down. The big thing is down to the course in terms of understanding the course and then the riders that are coming with you. Do you have a particular area where somebody's going to be particularly strong or particularly weak? But again, it's the same thing as having a rider in the draft and having a rider to plug the draft. If there's a space that opens, is more valuable than somebody not being there. So, we often, in terms of, and we've done a lot in previous TTTs, if somebody's starting to struggle, they won't roll through, but they'll just stay in the draft, and they'll stay there in the draft as long as possible, because you want them there as a rider to increase the draft cone or just plug a hole rather than falling off the back. And now, instead of having 6 riders, you've got 5 riders to plug the same hole. Now that person who's just come off an effort has to now cover the hole, which then puts them in a deeper hole, rather than the person that is struggling but hasn't been taking turns is now able to plug the hole and save the other rider to then carry on doing really good strong turns.
So those riders have got to sort of make that decision and shout up before they get to the point where they're going to be dropped, right? And then what you're going to do, just sit in 3rd or 4th wheel and say, right, hold that?
Yeah, basically 3rd or 4th wheel. But even a better way, with the previous pack dynamics, and I'm interested to see how it does now with the update, is, if you go to the front and you say you fall back to the back, but then you end up in the 3rd last position, rather than fighting and trying to drop back or trying to punch through the rider, rather move up with the effort, and then when you get to 2nd wheel with the rider in front, drop back with that rider at the same time. So in theory, the front 2 riders peel off at the same, like a normal pace line on the road, the 2 riders fall off together and then move to the back, rather than the 3rd rider trying to push through the 2nd rider and such. In terms of, when that,
Nice.
You look at it that way, that's wasted effort.
Yeah, and I never realized, I think I've seen that happen, but I've never realized that was the way to do it. So yeah, perfect insight there, James. All right, so we're on the Greatest London Flat. Give us your tip on this specific course, and is there a particular point that we've either got to be cautious of or we could take advantage of?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, because it's a lot longer than you think, because you go through basically the start finish twice per se. But the biggest I think everybody's aware of is the elevators, like I mentioned earlier. But I think the trickiest part of this whole course is the climb past Box Hill up through the Richmond Park climb, or Richmond Hill climb, I think it's called. There it's a long steady gradient. If you as a team can really push hard and dig deep, you can make up a lot of time on your competitors. And then again, same thing, using the negative gradient to get up to speed after the climb to get really hard, and then again, big effort to punch out of the escalators.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you for that, James. Thank you for your insights this time around as well. Big thanks to James there for giving us his insights into team time trialing and what makes Team Next so fast when it comes to team time trials. All right, just before we get into the pens, don't forget the Recon notes are available over at levelvelo.cc. All right, so we're going to leave the pens. It's pretty flat to start with, but pretty quickly it gets pretty lumpy, dare I say it. So get straight into that pace line. Make sure those riders are strung out and also working efficiently in that draft. As we've discussed, it is pretty lumpy. So again, just watch out for those riders rolling through and pushing the pace, making sure you hold on to that formation. So I've said at kilometre 3.7, we are going to take this 4% rise up here up Northumberland Avenue. And again, working on keeping that pace line, maybe leaving one rider on the front all the way up the top of this climb. And once you get to the top of this drag, that rider can peel off, float to the back, save some energy in the draft, ready for the next riders to take us through the next section towards that start-finish banner. Once we take the right-hander at the top, again, it's just a gradual false flat then for the next 3 kilometers where we cross the start-finish banner. All right, so once we've done that lead in, basically between kilometer 10 and 18, you've got a series of false flats and gradual decline. So again, it's about using that momentum, keeping the pace high, using those gradual descents to build up that speed and keep the speed high throughout this next section before we cross the river and head across to the Surrey Hills. All right, so once we get across to the Surrey Hills, we then get into this section that James Barnes was talking about, the Richmond Hill. Basically, this is the start at kilometre 18.5 of 3 bumps in the road here. Call them bumps, but they are drags, 400 to 500 meters again. Legs are getting tired at this point. It's really important to keep that concentration. And again, if you've got riders who are just beginning to suffer, make sure you shout up early and get them in the pace line, utilizing those riders to draft rather than taking a pull through. So this is the section that James Barnes was talking about, a 900-meter drag here at average at 2%. The legs were getting tired here. This is the Richmond Hill, and this is the final climbing section before we head back over the river and back into Greater London. Then it's back into the underground station, and this is where we're going to punch the legs to keep the pace high. It's just 200 meters, maxes out at 14%. Keep the cadence high, smash those pedals, get all your riders over the top. Then we're going to head back into Greater London and drive it for the final 7 kilometers all the way to that finish line. Remember, just after the pens, you will go past this banner. This isn't the finish, but when you pass this point, you've got another 7 kilometers to go. As always, for this final 7 kilometers, this is the toughest part of the race. You've got these rolling, draggy sections that we did right at the start of the race, but the legs are going to be much tireder now. Concentrate, work hard on that formation. Use the strongest, freshest riders to keep that pace high on the front. We're going to head into that final 3 kilometers, which is pretty flat, and it's time to just drive it all the way to the finish, making sure you've got 4 riders that cross that finish line together. So that's it, the final race, the team time trial done for this round of the Zwift Racing League. But don't forget, we will be back soon for round 2 of the Zwift Racing League. As always, thank you for supporting the channel and watching these recons. If you don't mind, just pop down, give the video a thumbs up. Maybe just give us a quick comment as well. It'd be great, as always, to watch some of the banter and some of the chat down in the comment section below. I really appreciate it. Have a great week's training, and I'll see you soon for more Zwift Racing League. Really looking forward to you and the team in the Zwift Grand Prix. And of course, how are your team doing this season in terms of the ZRL then? You guys are in a tough league, right?
Yeah, geez, the racing this morning on Yorkshire was, yeah, it's really tough. I think it's probably, we were doing just over 13-minute laps. You know,
Wow.
the way the speed we went up Potbank was faster than the Grand Prix, to give you an idea. That's how hard, yeah, it was. We were all hanging on for dear life, and it was great because the banter's there and the racing is really like.
So you guys did a sub 30 minute around Yorkshire comfortably.
Yeah. I can tell you the message afterwards, and we can have a good guess in the comments of what the time was, and then we can put it at the you can put it at the end of the video of what it actually is. What? Because I've got it on a screenshot somewhere, and it was great because who actually won was a breakaway, and that
Wow.
again shows that it's not just a bunch sprint. So again, it was Jammers who got away just between the lull between Potbank and the last riser. Zach bridged across up the drag, and it was the two of them fighting to the end. It was an awesome race. It was just a Yorkshire's brutal for racing.
Yeah. When I first saw it, you look at the distance of that course and you think, oh, it's not a massively long. Because I think we've done that course before, the Yorkshire course, but we did like 5 laps. Was that last season or 2 seasons ago? We did like 5 laps of that course, and last night on 2 laps, my legs were done. It was that intense. I'm glad you had Jammers in your race because he, for the last couple of weeks, has been doing my race, which is like 7:30 time in the evening UK. And I didn't see him last night, which I was grateful of. So I could tell, we'll let the watchers know what your time was at the end. I think our time was, or I did 31. I won't say our time because the lead group in my race were also about a minute up the road. So yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much, James. Hopefully we can get you on next season as well for some additional tips or another member of your team. But as I said, good luck in the Zwift Grand Prix. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the insights in the time trial, and we'll see you guys soon.
All the best. Thank you.